come up. There we go. For a second, all I saw was black. But here we are, and everything is where it needs to be. Welcome, everyone. We are here to continue attempting to paint the Call to Arms giant. For those who were not here to see the evolution, I was not happy with how the giant turned out. I'm trying to get him to look like the gray image in the, well, combination of all of them, but the bottom right is really what I was trying to do. I started with a combination of blue and grays, with a series of washes to try to achieve the look, and while there were parts where I did get close, he looked too leathery. You can't continuously dry brush something without it taking on a negative look. So I re-primed him off screen. I made the entirety of his body red. One of the issues we were facing with the figurine is that he had no life to him. He was just looking rather, blue and gray, like he was unfinished, like he was unprimed. The sash right here that I painted white is the base color for the fur that we're going to apply. I painted that in an attempt to contrast the gray skin. I did not like it. It did not come out well. So here we are. After applying the red primer, my thought process is that a little bit of the red should at least tint or color the primer that I place over it. I'm going to go with a gray. The current image is based off of the bottom right image of what I display on screen. I guess I would have to use this right here, this image next to my finger. And that's what I'm going to try to mimic. So let's hope that comes through with the gray. I thought about applying a wash, but we're not going to apply a wash just yet. We'll leave the gray or the red as it is. And then I'll peek through my paints. I bought a specific gray for this, and that is, let's put the figurine aside, and that is company gray. It's lighter than the primer that I usually use, which is flatter in color. I suppose all grays are flat. If I could find it, I'll give you a specific, there it is. So it's brighter and less intense than the uniform gray, which I use as my standard primer. So I'm hoping that this lighter color will allow the red to seep through a bit more. So after applying the primer, and depending on how it looks, I'm going to hit it with a series of tones. But I bought a blue tone, again, specifically for this. The last time blue tone was applied, it was over the dry brushing, and unfortunately, it sapped a lot of life. We were really having issues with the creature looking rather alive. So to catch up those who may be watching, this is the base that I had for it. The base came out well. I'm proud of how it turned out. The grass is a little bit greener than the bottom, but I don't think it's too noticeable. I did go and buy some extra grass, but I didn't take the base with me when I went to the store, and it's just too dark, so we will not be using that. Thank you, Meg. So, that's what the figurine looks like, and to give you a sense of scale, this is the Serana figure. He's quite tall. This figurine, for those who are unaware, is a 3D printed make. Somebody created it, and I just went and I purchased it, and I'm using it for Call to Arms. It's not accurate to scale. He should be a little smaller, and had I realized that, I would have resized him, but I like the large sizing of him. The base, however, the base is accurate to what the base would be in Call to Arms, and I would have to reread the rules, but it's my understanding that we measure from base height a little bit, but base as well. So with that being said, it's time to experiment and hope that we can get a better looking giant than we have before, starting with the company gray that we're going to apply over it. I shake it off screen. You can kind of see me going wild. I've noticed that recently the acrylics that I've bought, specifically from War Paints, that's what I use. I don't know if it's technically official, but it's what the Fallout Wasteland Warfare figurines say to use. So I assume it would be the same. Modifus makes both Fallout and the Skyrim Call to Arms. If I haven't shown it yet, we'll be shifting over after I finish the Giants. I received the Heroes of Sanctuary Hills Wasteland Warfare set, and we'll be doing Nate afterwards, so he can go with my little Vault Explorer unit. I don't think they're here in my office. They're not, but I do have a Nora and Lucy figurine painted and finished. And for any crossover with my Fallout 76 viewers from the gaming channel, this is my figurine custom 3D printed of Samantha, the character that I use in my videos. That being said, we are applying the company gray paint to the palettes, which I keep just off screen. We are going to use a, 20-0? A level 120/0. I actually don't know how brushes are named. It's just the smallest brush that we can get of this brand. This is actually my preferred brand of brush. I don't know the name of it. I just know that it's the see-through one with the white handle. Here's hoping it comes out well. Adjust the light so I can see a little bit better. Take a look. Am I in view? I am. Let me adjust the focus momentarily. Here goes. Okay. I'll apply it at an angle. And now it's not entirely necessary to cover every inch. It's not a problem if some red is peeking through and there are small gaps in the paint. A wash will also cover in between, but those splashes of color are going to be what helps us immensely. So we can spread as much of the paint as we want. Again, we are really trying to avoid that lifeless look. The difficulty in that is we don't want to spread the paint too thin, and we don't want to keep it too bunched up. The details aren't entirely visible. I suppose you can see them right here, but in this particular area where my brush is, the ribs are peeking through. Very strong. The problem with applying multiple coats of paint to a figurine is that the more coats that you apply, the less detail remains. I've already had multiple coats on this before I've decided that I hated the way it looked. There is a bright side. This is a 3D printed figurine, and if I decide that I hate it, I can always 3D print a second figurine. Of course, I'd rather not do that. But the giant is proving to be a lot more difficult than I would like. Oh, you're right, the definition is starting to peak. It looks like the exposure is consistently changing with the placement of my hand, and that's what's okay. Let me turn off the auto exposure. I don't want it to be that bright. Let me try that bright with my hand in the way. Does that help? It's still too bright. Let's go ahead and turn the auto exposure back on. But yes, you're right. I can now see the definition is starting to come through a bit more. We don't want to apply too much to a single area, but we also don't want to apply too little and make it so that we have to go back over. I may be applying the paint too thin, which is always going to be a possibility as I experiment with this. A red wash could assist depending on how everything comes out when this white layer is finished. You can see in this underarm section it's getting very, very white, like very applied. So I'm going to have to go through and spread it out before it dries, solidifies and hardens and becomes stuck, part of the figurine. Right here you can see where I left too heavy of a streak and it conflicts with the rest of it. A wash will help fade that away. If necessary, I have a file off to the side that I can use to brush paint away. As long as you're careful, you can only scrape, you have the ability to only scrape away the top layer. I've recently been using that technique to combat my inability to paint eyes. I end up adding so many layers to the face that the details get lost, and it looks terrible. What I assumed was my shortcomings in painting, which, of course, it is. I'm not going to sit here and claim to be the most skilled, but it's apparently a rather common issue for figurines in Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which is where the majority of my painting experience comes from. They are actually changing the scale of Fallout figures, giving them a slightly heroic look. According to one of the developers, they're still going to maintain consistency between older figurines and the newer ones, except the newer ones are going to have slightly exaggerated facial features, specifically so that painting the face is easier. And I do look forward to that. The Nora figurine that I mentioned earlier was a difficult paint because once everything was said and done, her face looked terrible. The only way I can say it is that she looked like she got plastic surgery because she had no definition and it just looked too pristine. And I had to scrape away a lot of paint to get her to look better. Right here, the crevice, you can chill camera. The little neck bone section had a little bit too much paint. We need to be careful that we don't apply too much. Can't get overzealous. Though I am compelled to remind viewers that when we paint for the 5-foot rule, which means that as close as you are to the figure right now, as close as I am to the figure right now, when we are on the table, that is not going to be the distance from us. So, as long as the figurine looks good at 5 feet, we've done our job. Hence the 5-foot rule. I've often thought about going back and touching up the Serana figure that was briefly on screen earlier. Simply because I would like to add a little bit more definition to her coat, her cloak. I've recently started a technique of dry brushing lighter colors on top of an outfit for a character to give them a little bit more definition, to make their to make it look like the clothing is getting stretched and thrust. It's like I'm talking to my cat. Stretched and stressed over movement, so you see the fabric thinning out. My cat is lurking just off camera. I can see him out of the corner of the eye lurking by. Apparently nothing. The underarm got a little bit too heavy of a coat of white, so I have to be careful to spread that about. And of course, the elbow needs some as well. I am not going to paint or prime the feet, simply because you will not see them as they get attached to the base. And for the most part, I no longer paint the bottom of the bases, because again, you typically will not see them when playing, unless you knock the figure over, which I do not mistreat my figurines. It takes a lot of effort to paint these things. Not to mention the cost of actually buying the figurine, so I do not wish to mistreat them. Overall, the giant that I'm painting was very cost effective. I believe I bought him for $12. And then, you know, the filament, which it does not take a lot of filament to print out a figure. Of course, you have to have the startup of getting the 3D printer. But having a 3D printer is probably one of the best purchases I have ever made. Like I've ever purchased a 3D printer, actually. That's funny. They were gifts from my loving girlfriend, actually. We almost have the first layer of paint sat down. In a moment, we'll take a bit, orient, see where we're at, and what has to be done. Unfortunately, there are definitely positions of white that are a little bit too spot on, and I don't want to, at this particular moment, apply a bunch more of the gray primer. So, we'll give it a moment to dry, see how it dries, and then see what needs to be changed from there. The sections where the company gray paint is thicker do not look terrible. They allow the red to still peek through, it looks like. So perhaps once they dry, if it's not too bad, we will do another coat of white. Recently, I've been playing Fallout 76 again. My friend Impulse bought it when I mentioned briefly that, like, I used to play it. And then when he did that, I hopped on to see how it was anymore, because it's been a few months since I've actually played. And I forgot how much I actually enjoyed that game. So, I have not played today. I've not had the time to, but I would like to sit down and at least do some dailies. I am back to uploading tutorial videos on my gaming channel in Other Worlds Gaming, which is linked in my channel if you're vaguely interested in Fallout 76 tutorials. Somebody posed a question. I saw that when I got on YouTube, which I haven't been on YouTube, this YouTube channel specifically, I should say, in a while, asking if I had any plans to continue filming episodes for whom it may concern. I almost said Stardew Valley, but I guess there is a hint of Stardew Valley in it. The Iron Valley RPG that I was doing. Personally, I would like to. After recovering from my sickness, it's been difficult to find a proper balance between the things that I wish to do. I'm reminded of my favorite television show, My Name is Earl. If you haven't seen it, the show is about a no good, rotten criminal who wins the lottery and then is immediately hit by a car. As he's in the hospital after being hit by that car, he's laced up on medicine and he watches a talk show host talk about the concept of karma. So he comes up with a wild idea that if you do good things happen, and if you do bad things happen. So the entire show is him going out and he made a list of every bad deed he's ever done and he's trying to correct it, bring himself some good karma. It's a feel-good comedy where he goes through, learns a lesson, fixes something he did wrong. There's funny laughs and hijinks throughout, and everybody feels better after watching the show. The final episode ended on a cliffhanger, not necessarily answering a question that anybody had even thought to ask, but posing a question. And it was a massive cliffhanger for the show. The thing about My Name is Earl is that My Name is Earl was not afraid of altering the status quo. It did so a lot. And this question, once answered, was confirmed later on by the director. It was going to change up the way the show was. I don't want to give spoilers for this ancient show. But we never saw the conclusion to that cliffhanger, which is sad. All these years later, I still occasionally think about it and wonder what the show would have been like had it continued. And it makes me think about the fact that, it would be nice, to go back and finish the episodes and the shows that I've done. It's all about finding the proper rhythm to get them done. But I would absolutely love to go back and do them. But you guys know me. The amount of effort I have to put into something drives me mad. In regards to what is happening at this particular moment, I'm applying a slightly heavier coat to the right side of the body. I guess the left side from his perspective, but the right side of the camera. Just to see how it's going to turn out. I am under the assumption and the feeling of that I keep hitting the camera, but the simple fact that I am going to probably apply a heavier helping of company gray to the figurine. He looks a little white, but having the red peek through is definitely helping with the life that I'm trying to give the figure. So I think it's coming out better, that's for sure. Have to get the corner just because it was not proper. Making things a short story is probably the best bet. Once more, I've almost forgot the underarm. Speaking of video games, though, I've been having the urge to play Dragon Age 1 again. I'm not going to, but it would be very nice. Dragon Age is just one of those things I keep coming back to. It seems that my life functions on the rotation of Dragon Age, Skyrim, Fallout, whatever random game gets thrown in between, sometimes Fire Emblem. And then I just jump to the next game. I guess at present, it's the Fallout grind, right? Yes, I am using Company Grey on the figure. Which isn't very gray, I must say. It makes for a great white and a great snowy color. But I imagine after getting a wash on him, he'd look better. The question is whether a dark wash, as in like a neutral dark color, would be the color to use, or if I should jump directly to the blue wash. As the left side of the camera, I should say, has dried, I can definitely say that it works better to apply a deeper color, because the red is tinting the gray on the body much better than it is over here, and that uniform color does absolutely look better. So we will go about applying a heavier color of gray. But because we've already applied a lighter shade earlier, we are going to be doing basically the same technique of applying gray and then stretching it out, because it'll become gray on gray if we don't. And we want to leave just enough of the red to be hinted through. Already I believe this looks better than the other variation did. The burned meat style that I had done earlier. But I suppose we'll see as it gets closer to completion. I don't believe I'll use any dry brushing on the body. The dry brushing is what really ruined it and gave Terry, is his name, the burned meat look. It's going very Freddy on me. Fortunately, the arm has a little bit heavier coat than I wish to apply, which I should have remembered, because when initially doing this, I do believe that I had too much of a coat on the arm before. The top of that arm is going to be pretty bad. Fortunately, it's going to be overshadowed by the club. Give a pop of color to the armband, and your eye will be drawn here instead of the divot, the little crevice there. Okay. It came out better, I will say. At least for now. I'm a little nervous how it's going to look once we get the wash down. And I don't want to cover the entire figurine yet, mostly because if this is a failed style and I have to change it up, that's just more layered paint to fix and to clean up. So we'll give that a moment till we've beaten the opponent. I'm secretly really into the musical epic. While we give that a chance to dry, why don't we judge the complexity of the Fallout figure? Let's make sure I have no paint on my hands as I'm handling the box. Should be fine. Unfortunately, in shipping, the box was damaged, which drove me mad. The figurines come in little baggies. So let's take a look. This is dog meat. I was about to say he looks like a fairly simple figurine to put together. Where is my pointing file? With the exception of that little leg is going to be a pain in the ass to glue. I am happy to see that it comes with a scenic base. The newer Modifist figures, such as this Dragonborn figure that I have, they do not have scenic bases, and you have to do something to them. A friend of mine recently showed me this desert primer that I put overneath it. Very sandy. It has a nice texture to it. But for this, I don't have to do that. I can just layer on different paintings to get the ground to look nice. There's where you attach the pieces to the dog. That I'm not looking forward to putting Dogmate together, but the other dog that I have, I don't even think I've painted. He might be here to my right. No, just the primed Deathclaw that I haven't finished yet. Deathclaw. You can see that I've already started painting the ground. I may just go over this portion with the sand that I have to the right. But let's continue on. Mr. Handy. The abundance of legs down here make the figurine look like it'll be complex to put together. But thankfully, as you can see right here, there's a little divot. All I have to do is fill that with glue, plug the arm in, and it'll hold rather nice. Mr. Handy will not be a problem to put together. This is like my fourth Mr. Handy figure. This one is specifically Cogsworth, but this is like my fourth Mr. Handy figure. I have not put them together yet. And here is Nate. This is a standard humanoid. You just attach the arms, which the arms, if you can see, also have that little divot. When it comes to the small figurines, that can be an issue when injecting the arms to that, but I don't imagine it being too bad. Thankfully, his arms don't cross his body, so that means I can just prime him and then, you know, paint him when he's glued together. How complex is the scenic base? Not complex. So the base itself is not complex, but unfortunately, there are a lot of smaller details around the dirt, meaning that I have to do the dirt first, get that as complete as possible, and then try not to mess up when I do the smaller details. So while not complex, it is just slightly precise. That's not going to be too hard to do. By now, the giant has definitely dried to the point where we can consider our next steps. Grab a drink of water and then we'll figure out where we're going. Interesting. It may be blue wash time, I think. Right here, it's nice. Let's bring him close, adjust the focus so that you can have a good view of him. Come on, you're hurting my eyes. It's probably the best I'm going to be able to do briefly. No, that's terrible, actually, because you lose a lot of the detail. Go on. There we go. So you can see right here, the muscle comes through. It's very gray, but there are hints, and it's stronger in the eye. This camera picks up things darker than they are in person, but there's a lot of red poking through. It gives it that little bit of splash, that life that I was hoping for. I think I do want to apply a blue wash and see where it goes. Again, judging off the bottom right image, right here next to my finger, he has that blue sickly tint to him. And that red and then white covering it with blue, I guess America colors, should make it seem close enough. Who would have thought that giants are so patriotic? So here we go. We are going to use a blue tone. The thing with tones is you have to be very careful. If If you apply too light of a tone, you don't get the color that you want. Apply too heavy of a tone. Apply too heavy of a tone, and the figure becomes shiny. Look at that. Yeah, we do not want to do that. I keep the figurine like this is a perfect example. This is like one of the first few that I made. How far we've come. Let's get started. We shake the blue primer. This one actually has the little ball bearing inside of it. You might be able to hear it as I speak. I have several filters meant to filter out background silence on, so we'll see if that actually comes through. Should be nice, and hashtag shook. So, blue, one more blue just to be safe. We're going to be using the same brush, which I've already cleaned off. Let's clean it again just to be sure. You always want to clean brushes in between paints to make sure you don't get cross-contamination and to protect your brush. But of course, this one shot to hell. I was not careful with it because I thought it was my ruined brush, and then I looked at it and I was like, oh no, this is my good brush. What have I done? What have I done to my boy? I've never seen The Godfather. I am dabbing a bit of the blue off in the palette to make sure that I don't pull too much with me. Here goes. Let's hope this one comes out. I can already tell off rip, unless this dries very dark, that it's too bright. It also looks like I may not have given the figurine quite enough time to dry. I know they're supposed to do it overnight, but, you know, I've gotten away with not waiting overnight before. But it also could be that this, the company gray is just not applying the tone evenly, which is unlikely. The thing about washes is that they look very different from application to dry, more so than anything else. The arm. Okay, the arm. I may not have been using enough blue. That might have been what's going on. The arm is instantly taking off a better color, and if it dries to the color that I'm applying it on, I'm gonna love that. I have to adjust the focus because I'm a little further away now, right? That is, at least while applying, coming out pretty solid. It may require a dark wash over it just to apply that like mud, darker mud color, but we'll see. But applying it so far, that's looking on camera. On camera, that's looking pretty damn good compared to the bottom right image is what I'm aiming for. It's going to warrant dark wash. There is a little bit of light to it. You can still see the gray, but there is a little bit of light to the red underneath. It doesn't look just primed. Let's commit to the other side. Going to be a little heavier on the wash because I was not being heavy enough, I believe. Have 40 minutes passed already? Oh, wow. I have a playlist going for 40 minutes of music in the background. It's not playing in the stream. If anybody's wondering, it's just various calm Dragon Age music because I find Dragon Age music to be very good for just background and not paying attention. Why are you interesting? Chill. There we go. Yep, cannot forget under the arm. That happens on occasion. It's always the arms and the elbows that mess me up. That is a very strong application for just being a very small part of the body. There may be too much blue along his back. The key when dry brushing is you don't want to leave it looking very wet. Where is the focus? Where are my dragons? I've never seen Game of Thrones. Let's clean this up. There are portions that still look wet. We want to get rid of them. Can't leave them looking wet. They dry too wet, it becomes shiny. We do not want that. You can likely see right there that heavy patch of red is going to need to be gone over with white, the company gray look. Okay. On camera. On camera, he damn near matches the dragon. Why'd I say dragon? On camera, he damn near matches the image that I'm going for. There are those hints of colors, the darker skin. I think if I get a darker wash in places of it, really define the fact that he's ripped, we can get it looking like the way we want it to go, realistically, with the portions of red that do peek through beneath both the blue wash and the company gray, with the exception of Homeboy's muscle that he's flexing. It's coming out pretty good. Company gray with a blue tone, potentially a dark tone, maybe a soft tone, may be the go-to. That may be what we're aiming for to finish it out and get it looking nice and crisp. But before we can even touch anymore, we do need to let washes dry. Washes take a long time to dry, and that's not even something we're probably going to be able to do tonight. With that said, stand on your own 2 feet, bud, and then we begin to apply the company gray to other portions. I agree with you, Meg. I gotta be careful with what I touch, so we're gonna go for the leg. Focus okay? Let's take a look. Better. Now, we already know that the mistake we've been making is going too light on all of the paint that we're working on. So we can apply right here to his knee a heavier helping of company gray. We're still going to attempt to spread it out as we apply it. but it's not terrible. In fact, beyond a dark tone, I do have a bit of red tone that may be applied at points. We don't want to layer too much on top of the figurine, but perhaps some portions would benefit from a red tone, which we'll see when we get a little bit closer to applying other tones. Gotta get the back right here. I was a little iffy if the company gray was actually going to work out, so I'm glad that we are seeing some level of progress to finishing this figurine. Pretty sure I just hit his toes, but I mean, I'm going to have to go over them anyways. Now, I've been a little overzealous at this particular point with the white, the company gray. We'll see how that actually comes out, because I can already tell right now there's a thicker application than there was with the upper body. I can spread it a bit as best as I can, but I'm not sure how well that's going to work. Perhaps that's where the red tone will come in. Speaking of reapplying, down here needs to be fixed because I smudged it while applying the red, or the blue wash better. And then let's go ahead and apply a little bit of a correction to his little flexy thing right here. Even just touching it up a bit, barely muting it, looks so much better. Coincidentally, the amount of white that's right here doesn't look too far off from what's above. The top simply looks a little bit darker than the bottom. And with the amount of white that I've applied, you can't really tell there is red in beneath, or underneath. So we're going to have to be a little bit calmer when we apply to the other side. Let's see if we can get a better consistency with the paint. Perhaps an unplanned coincidence is that Fallout 76 is getting more minis released soon, which I know that I'm painting Elder Scroll figures, but Fallout Wasteland Warfare is primarily the game I wish to play. I actually had my first game last week. I finally played Wasteland Warfare, that's right. It was a solo game. I was not familiar with how the figurines stacked against each other, so I took a single Nora to fight like 4 ghouls, and I was killed by a single ghoul. No, the other ghouls didn't even reach me. Sure, there was a series of terrible rolls, but, you know, she did not survive the ghoul encounter. She got 1, at least. Sorry, Nora. Hopefully we both learned from that. I have played several Call to Arms matches. I did a raid against a Stormcloak castle because I stan Imperial. Every character I play in any sort of Elder Scroll game is Imperial just because we stan Imperial around here. but I don't have an Imperial figurine. Recently, I did get the cards for the Serana figure that you see here, and I have not played a game using the figurine. I would like to. There is so much to do. Have you ever heard of Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era? It is this massive, and I don't use the word massive in this context lightly. It is this massive board game that the tutorial alone took us like 2 hours, maybe 3 to play through. You have to dedicate an entire afternoon to that game. But when I tell you that the board game is premium, my guy, it is premium. Okay. The lighter tone on this leg, which would be the right leg, it definitely works more than the heavier tone that I applied here. So what can we do to fix it? If necessary, I can do a little bit more red on it and then apply a white, another company gray. We do not wish to do that because, again, you don't want to overly layer paint. The red tone can hit it, but that may leave a inconsistency with the rest of the figurine. How deep of an inconsistency depends on how the tone takes place. Realistically, it's not too important. You can also try scraping a bit. That did not have the intention that I wanted it to, and I'm not going to handle the figurine any harder. We'll leave that as it is. It scraped off a bit of the paint. I applied too much pressure, it would seem. Which we cover up with that. The scratches will be hidden by deeper layers. This side came out really nice. We'll have to see how he looks when we apply other colors to him, get him potentially looking a little better. Let's cover up his calf. Paint is applying fairly thin right there, as you can see. Just go through and give it a second coat. We want it to be thicker and darker on there, but not enough so that it's going to be a problem. At this particular moment, it seems to be just taking on a light consistency. I don't want to get overzealous in the application, though. That's where problems arise. Better. That calf is really just absorbing all of the paint. That's hilarious. We are likely not going to have the same issue right here because it's a smaller surface area to cover with the brush. Mm-hmm. Hardest part about painting on camera is remembering the fact that you are painting on camera and I must keep details where you can see them. Moving on to the hand. Reaching the end of my day, I'm starting to get fairly tired. Figurine down here broke when it was printing. Unfortunately, these things happen. But I think it works on the hand of the giant because it's kind of like, it's an injury. So, like, now the giant kind of tells a story. He lost a finger. How? We'll never know. Perhaps another giant. Perhaps one of the large mammoths jacked him up. Maybe it was one of the companions that did it and he managed to get away. All we know is that Terry is the only one who knows. And Terry isn't talking, isn't telling. I don't know. I haven't watched Camel Works in years. Do you remember the Skyrim lore videos? Those were sick. Back in the day, we would sit outside, me and the friends, like 2 in the morning with a bonfire and a laptop, just watching Skyrim theory videos. Crazy to think that I've been playing Skyrim in the various game since 2011. I was just out of high school. Funny because had I been asked, I would have said that it came out while I was in high school. Terry needs to get it right. We are going to call the stream there. It is almost 9 o'clock. I will finish priming him off camera, and by the time we return for our next stream, we will have him all white and then continue to apply the washes and see how they dry. I thank anybody who may have joined me today, and I hope to see you in the next stream where we can finally work towards completing at least the base of Terry. We still have many more hours once we get him, and then we take care of the clothing. But until we do that, I'll be